Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit at Work, where we dive into the real workplace stories that had people reaching for the popcorn or hiding behind their monitors.
The mystery of the missing lunch, how a stolen sandwich divided the office.
Blackwood Marketing Associates wasn't the kind of place where you'd expect high drama. Housed on the 15th floor of a nondescript office building in downtown Chicago, it was a mid-sized agency specializing in B2B marketing campaigns, the kind of place where the most exciting thing that usually happened was landing a new client or the occasional birthday celebration complete with grocery store sheet cake in the breakroom. The office culture was pleasant enough, 60 or so professionals ranging from fresh out of college associates to grizzled marketing veterans who had survived multiple industry evolutions. We had the standard office politics, of course. The creative team thought the account managers were too rigid, the account managers thought the creatives were flaky, and everyone collectively rolled their eyes at the executives who spent more time on golf courses than in meetings. But overall, we functioned as a reasonably cohesive unit. Our floor was laid out in an open plan with a few glass-walled offices along the perimeter for senior staff. The heart of our office was the breakroom, a generously sized space with a cluster of tables, a small kitchen area with 2 refrigerators, a row of cabinets, and the all-important coffee station that kept the agency functioning. I was 3 years into my role as a copywriter when the incident occurred. Looking back, it seems absurd how something so small could spiral into such chaos, but I've since learned that it's often the tiniest spark that creates the biggest fires, especially in the pressure cooker environment of office politics. It began on a Tuesday in October. Mark Jeffries, our head of digital strategy, opened the refrigerator at precisely 12:30 p.m. The man was nothing if not a creature of habit to retrieve his lunch, only to find it missing. Now, to understand the gravity of this situation, you need to know 2 things about Mark. First, he was obsessive about food. His lunches weren't your standard cold cuts on white bread. They were culinary masterpieces, meticulously prepared by his wife, Rachel, who was a professional chef at an upscale restaurant downtown. These weren't just meals. They were expressions of love and creativity that Mark photographed daily for his surprisingly popular Instagram food account. Second, Mark was what we diplomatically called particular about his routines. Any disruption to his carefully structured day would send him into a tailspin of anxiety and irritation. "Has anyone seen my lunch?" Mark's voice carried across the breakroom, where about a dozen of us were eating. It was in a glass container with a blue silicone lid. Inside was a prosciutto sandwich on homemade sourdough with fig jam, caramelized onions, and manchego cheese. The specificity of the description almost made me laugh, but the look on Mark's face stopped me. He wasn't just annoyed, he was genuinely distressed. "Maybe you left it at home," suggested Aisha from the account team. "I didn't. Rachel handed it to me this morning, and I put it in the fridge as soon as I arrived at 8:15. "Could you have put it in the other refrigerator?" asked Tom, another copywriter. Mark's expression darkened. "I always use the left refrigerator, second shelf from the top, back left corner. Always." The break room fell silent as everyone mentally checked whether they had accidentally taken someone else's lunch, an innocent mistake we've all made at some point. "I'm sure it will turn up," I offered weakly, but Mark was already pulling out his phone. "Rachel spent an hour making that bread yesterday. She cured the prosciutto herself last month." He was texting furiously, presumably updating his wife on the sandwich heist. The incident might have ended there, a simple case of a missing lunch that would be forgotten by the end of the day. But then the impossible happened. Mark's lunch container was discovered empty, rinsed clean, and placed in the dish drying rack by the sink. This was no longer a case of mistaken lunch identity or something accidentally getting thrown away. Someone had deliberately taken Mark's gourmet sandwich, enjoyed it thoroughly enough to leave no evidence, and then had the audacity, or perhaps courtesy, to wash the container. By Wednesday morning, news of the sandwich theft had spread throughout the office. Mark had sent an email to the entire staff with the subject line, "Important, theft in the breakroom," that included a detailed description of the missing sandwich and a request for information leading to the identification of the lunch thief. Our office manager, Linda, a motherly figure who had been with the company since its founding and was usually the voice of reason, tried to diffuse the situation. "Mark, I understand you're upset, but I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe someone thought it was leftover food from Monday's client meeting." "Leftover food in a personal glass container with my name labeled on the bottom? I don't think so, Linda. Your name was on it. This detail changed things for Linda, whose expression shifted from placating to concerned. Well, that is inappropriate. I'll send out a reminder about respecting personal items in the refrigerator. Linda's email went out an hour later, a diplomatically worded message about maintaining a respectful shared environment that never explicitly mentioned the sandwich incident but was clearly prompted by it. The matter might have died down there, but on Thursday, it happened again. This time, the victim was Sophia from accounting, whose homemade Greek salad vanished, container and all. Unlike Mark's situation, Sophia's container was never returned. By Friday, the office had transformed into something resembling a detective agency. Post-it notes with names appeared on food items in the refrigerator. Some people started bringing coolers to keep under their desks. Hushed conversations would stop abruptly when certain colleagues walked by, raising suspicion through silence. That's when Kevin from IT made what he thought was a helpful suggestion during an impromptu gathering in the break room. You know, we have security cameras in the hallways. We could probably review the footage to see who's coming into the break room at odd hours. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, but Linda quickly shut down the idea. Absolutely not. We are not using security footage to investigate missing lunches. This isn't a criminal investigation. It's a workplace issue that we can resolve through open communication. Kevin shrugged, but I noticed he exchanged meaningful glances with Mark. Something told me this wasn't the end of the security footage idea. By Monday of the following week, the office had split into factions. The investigators, led unofficially by Mark, this group was determined to find the culprit. They kept meticulous notes about who was in the break room at what times and developed elaborate theories about potential suspects. The mediators, headed by Linda, this faction believed the situation was being blown out of proportion and sought to restore office harmony through communication and new refrigerator policies. The unconcerned, a sizable group who brought non-perishable lunches or ate out and watched the drama unfold with bemused detachment. The suspected, a rotating cast of characters who fell under suspicion for various reasons. Someone noticed eating in their cube instead of the break room, anyone who had admired Mark's lunches in the past, or folks who suddenly seemed to have more elaborate meals than usual. I initially aligned with the unconcerned, bringing peanut butter sandwiches that no lunch thief would bother with, but my neutral position wouldn't last long. The escalation came when executive leadership became involved. Our CEO, Richard, called an impromptu all-hands meeting on Wednesday afternoon, a full 8 days after the first sandwich disappeared. It has come to my attention, Richard began, his voice carrying the grave tone usually reserved for announcing budget cuts or lost clients, that we have a situation affecting workplace morale and trust. The room was uncomfortably silent as everyone wondered how a missing sandwich had made its way up to the CEO's attention. Trust is the foundation of any successful team, Richard continued. Whether it's trust between colleagues or trust between client and agency, without it, we cannot function effectively. He went on to announce that the company would be installing a second refrigerator designated specifically for lunches, complete with a sign-in sheet to track who accessed it and when. Additionally, the company would supply lunch bags with ice packs for those who preferred to keep food at their desks. We will not be involving security or installing cameras in the break room, he added with a pointed look at Mark, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. This is a matter of professional courtesy, not security. As the meeting dispersed, I overheard Mark muttering to Kevin, he's only saying that because he knows who did it and is protecting them. And with that conspiratorial comment, the lunch thief mystery transformed from a minor workplace annoyance into a full-blown office drama that would expose existing tensions and create entirely new ones. The following week brought a new development when anonymous notes began appearing on the company message board. The first simply read, "Check Emily's desk drawer." Emily, a quiet graphic designer who rarely participated in office politics, became the first named suspect. Linda promptly removed the note, but not before several people had seen it. By lunchtime, everyone knew Emily was under suspicion, though no one would admit to writing the note. I found Emily alone in the creative corner, staring blankly at her monitor. "Hey, you okay?" I asked, pulling up a chair beside her. "People are looking at me differently," she said quietly. Mark walked by earlier and glanced at my trash can. My trash can. As if I'd keep evidence of stolen food at my desk. "It's ridiculous," I agreed. "This whole thing has gotten out of hand. The thing is," Emily lowered her voice, I bring the same lunch every day, a peanut butter and banana sandwich and an apple. I'm allergic to most deli meats, including prosciutto. I couldn't have eaten Mark's sandwich even if I wanted to. It was a solid alibi, but in the atmosphere of suspicion that had developed, rational facts were often overlooked in favor of juicy speculation. The situation fractured further when a secret meeting of the investigators was held after hours. I know this because I accidentally walked in on it while returning to grab my forgotten phone charger. Mark, Kevin from IT, Sophia from accounting, and about 5 others were huddled around a conference table with what appeared to be a map of the office marked with red dots. Sorry, I mumbled, backing out of the room, but Mark beckoned me in. Actually, Jordan, we could use your perspective. You sit near the breakroom entrance. Have you noticed anything suspicious lately? The question put me in an uncomfortable position. I didn't want to get involved, but I also didn't want to seem unhelpful or, worse, suspicious myself. Not really, I replied, trying to sound casual, but I'm usually focused on my work. Interesting that you haven't noticed anything, considering your desk location, remarked Sophia, with an edge to her voice that made me suddenly feel accused. What is that supposed to mean? I asked, feeling defensive. Nothing, Mark intervened smoothly. We're just gathering information from everyone. The mystery was solved, but the victory felt hollow. An uncomfortable silence hung over the office as people processed what had happened. Yes, a lunch thief had been caught, but at what cost? Mark had violated company policy and possibly the law by recording without consent. People's trust had been damaged not just by the thief but by the witch hunt that followed. Linda called an emergency department meeting that afternoon. Her usually warm demeanor was replaced by professional severity as she addressed the team. I want to clarify what happened today, she began. Yes, Brian is no longer with the company, but not simply for taking food from the refrigerator. During discussions with HR, it came to light that Brian had been falsifying client reports, which is a serious violation of company policy and our ethical standards. A collective gasp rippled through the room. As for the unauthorized surveillance equipment placed in the break room, Linda continued, her gaze fixed on Mark, this represents a serious breach of privacy and company policy. This matter will be addressed separately with the individuals involved. Mark squirmed in his seat but remained silent. Moving forward, Linda concluded, all recording devices brought into the office must be registered with IT and approved by management. Any unauthorized surveillance will result in immediate disciplinary action. The story could have ended there. The lunch thief was caught and fired, albeit for other reasons, and the unofficial investigators faced disciplinary consequences for their methods. However, the most shocking twist was yet to come. 2 days after Brian's departure, I was working late finishing a client proposal when the cleaning staff arrived. Among them was a woman I hadn't seen before, probably in her 60s, with reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. Don't mind me, dear, she said cheerfully as she emptied my trash can. You working on something important? Just a deadline, I replied, grateful for the brief human interaction after hours of staring at my screen. As she moved to the break room, I heard her humming softly. There was something soothing about her presence, a grandmotherly energy that made the sterile office feel momentarily warmer. About 15 minutes later, I decided I needed coffee to power through the rest of my work. Heading to the break room, I found the cleaning woman sitting at a table, eating something from a familiar-looking container. My heart stopped. It was a glass container with a blue silicone lid identical to the ones Mark's wife used. Sensing my presence, the woman looked up and smiled. Hope you don't mind. I always clean out the expired food from the refrigerator on Wednesdays. Company policy. Such a waste to throw good food away, especially when they leave it in there for over a week. Over a week? I echoed, mind racing. Oh yes, if it's not labeled with a date, we're supposed to dispose of anything that's been in there over a week. I've been doing this job for 20 years, and you wouldn't believe the things people forget in office refrigerators. She chuckled warmly. I don't like waste, so sometimes I take home some of the good stuff that would otherwise be thrown out. My grandson loves fancy sandwiches. I stood frozen, processing what I was hearing. Were you working here 3 weeks ago? On a Tuesday? Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, she confirmed. That's my regular schedule for this building. And you? Did you happen to find a sandwich with prosciutto that day? In a container like that one? She brightened. Oh, The fancy ham with the fig jam. That was delicious. I washed the container and put it back, of course. I always do. And what about a Greek salad the following Thursday? The one with the kalamata olives and feta? Yes, that was my dinner break treat. I took the container home that time to use for my grandson's lunch. Was that wrong? It didn't have a name or date on it. I sat down across from her, feeling lightheaded. Those lunches belonged to people who work here. They thought someone from the office was stealing their food. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my goodness. I had no idea. The management company told us to clear out old food weekly. I would never take something if I knew someone was planning to eat it. We talked for another half hour. Her name was Gloria, and she'd been with the cleaning company for over 2 decades. The instructions about refrigerator cleaning were indeed part of her job, but there had been a critical miscommunication. The management company had recently changed the policy from clearing out food after 2 weeks to doing so after 1 week, but not everyone had received the updated guidelines. Moreover, the date labeling system was inconsistently communicated to office tenants. Gloria assumed anything without her explicit date label that had been there since her previous shift was fair game for disposal, or in her frugal philosophy, repurposing. Those poor people. And someone lost their job. Gloria was genuinely distressed. We need to tell someone. The next morning, I arrived early and went straight to Linda's office, Gloria's contact information in hand. After explaining what I'd discovered, Linda looked simultaneously relieved and dismayed. So all of this, the accusations, the surveillance, the divisions in the office, was because of a miscommunication about refrigerator cleaning policies? She shook her head in disbelief. Essentially, yes, I confirmed. Gloria thought she was following protocol, and in a way, she was. Just not the protocol we thought was in place. Linda wasted no time bringing this information to Richard, who called an immediate meeting with Mark, HR, and the building management company. By lunchtime, yet another all-hands meeting was convened. Richard stood at the front of the conference room, his expression more weary than angry this time. I want to update everyone on the situation that has been affecting our office environment over the past few weeks, he began. We have discovered that there was no lunch thief among our staff. He explained the miscommunication with the cleaning staff and the updated refrigerator policy, emphasizing that Gloria had believed she was properly disposing of abandoned food. This revelation does not change the fact that Brian violated company policies in other ways, Richard clarified. However, it does mean that the atmosphere of suspicion and accusation that developed was entirely unwarranted. Mark, sitting rigidly in the front row, looked both relieved and embarrassed. Moving forward, Richard continued, we will implement clear labeling guidelines for refrigerator items, including names and dates. The cleaning staff will be properly briefed on these guidelines, and we will receive advance notice before any refrigerator cleaning occurs. He paused, surveying the room with a grave expression. More importantly, I hope this serves as a lesson to all of us about jumping to conclusions, escalating situations unnecessarily, and taking matters into our own hands rather than following proper channels. The damage to our workplace culture over these past weeks is something we all need to work together to repair. In the days that followed, the office atmosphere gradually shifted from tense to sheepish to, eventually, amused. The absurdity of how far things had escalated over a simple miscommunication became a shared joke rather than a source of division. New, clear guidelines were posted on the refrigerators, complete with labels and markers for everyone to use. Gloria was officially introduced to the staff during a Friday social hour, where Mark formally apologized and presented her with a gift basket of gourmet foods, including prosciutto. The unofficial surveillance equipment was removed, and Kevin faced a written warning for his participation in the unauthorized investigation. Mark, as the instigator, was placed on a 2-week probation and required to attend a workplace ethics seminar. As for me, I found myself in the unexpected position of office hero for solving the mystery, though I insisted it was pure coincidence that I happened to be working late that evening. Perhaps the most significant outcome was the impact on office relationships. The incident had exposed existing fault lines in our workplace culture, who was quick to accuse, who sought to mediate, who remained neutral, and who took advantage of the chaos for their own purposes. These revelations couldn't be unfelt or unseen, even as the immediate crisis passed. Looking back on the mystery of the missing lunch, as it came to be known in office law, I took away several important lessons. assumptions are dangerous. Everyone assumed the culprit was a colleague, when the simplest explanation, a miscommunication with cleaning staff, was overlooked. Workplace culture is fragile. It took years to build our collaborative environment, but only weeks to fracture it over something as trivial as missing food. Official channels exist for a reason. Mark's vigilante investigation caused more harm than good and could have resulted in legal issues for both him and the company. Small incidents reveal bigger truths. The way people responded to the mystery revealed much about their character and their true feelings about colleagues. Redemption is possible. Even after such a divisive episode, our team managed to rebuild trust through transparency, accountability, and a healthy dose of self-deprecating humor. In the months that followed, "Is this your sandwich?" became office shorthand for "Are you jumping to conclusions?" The blue containers with silicone lids made an appearance at the holiday gift exchange as a gag gift, and Gloria became something of an office favorite, greeted warmly whenever our late nights overlapped with her cleaning schedule. As for me, I now meticulously label every item I place in an office refrigerator, no matter where I work. And I've developed a habit of questioning simple explanations before elaborate conspiracies, a skill that has served me well in both professional and personal contexts. In the grand scheme of workplace dramas, our sandwich saga might seem trivial, but it taught us all that even the smallest spark can illuminate the largest truths about how we work together, for better or worse. And yes, I still bring peanut butter sandwiches for lunch. Some habits die hard. If you enjoy these corporate cautionary tales, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our weekly dose of workplace drama. Drop a comment letting us know which story hits closest to home. CFO caught stealing lunch from fridge claims it was a security check. I've been working at a mid-sized tech company for about 3 years now. Great benefits, decent pay, and generally nice coworkers. But about 6 months ago, we started experiencing what can only be described as the great lunch heist. It started small. Someone's yogurt would go missing. A sandwich would disappear. People initially brushed it off as forgetfulness, maybe they ate it earlier and didn't remember, or accidentally took it home. But then it escalated. My colleague Jess brought in homemade lasagna that her Italian grandmother had made. She talked about it all morning, how her nonna had spent hours making it from scratch. Come lunchtime, gone. Jess actually cried. Her grandmother had passed away 2 weeks later, making that stolen lasagna the last meal her nonna had ever made for her. After that, everyone was on high alert. People started labeling their food with aggressive notes. Touch this and die. Poisoned for thieves only. I've counted the grapes. Nothing worked. Our office manager, Teresa, suggested setting up a camera in the breakroom, but HR shut that down citing privacy concerns. So we got creative. Marco from engineering brought in a container with what looked like delicious chocolate cupcakes, but they were actually made with extremely spicy ghost pepper frosting. They disappeared within an hour of being placed in the fridge. We waited all day to see who would start breathing fire, but nothing happened. Then Zoe from marketing created an elaborate lunchbox with a glitter bomb inside, triggered to explode when opened. Again, the lunch vanished, but no one showed up covered in glitter. I decided to take things to the next level. I brought in my leftover pad thai and added a small Bluetooth tracker inside the container, tucked under the noodles. My plan was to use the app to locate my food once it was stolen. Sure enough, by 11:30 a.m., my lunch had disappeared. I opened the tracker app, and to my shock, the signal was coming from the executive floor. I stared at my phone in disbelief. No regular employee had access to that floor without an escort. I convinced my friend in IT to let me onto the executive floor under the pretense of fixing a printer. Heart pounding, I followed the signal on my phone, which led me straight to the CFO's office. Jeremy Blackwell, the 55-year-old financial wizard who had been with the company since its founding and who made approximately 30 times my salary. As I stood frozen outside his door, I heard the unmistakable beeping of a microwave. The door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, I could see MY container sitting on his desk, now empty, and Jeremy enjoying MY pad thai while reviewing spreadsheets. I was too shocked to move. Just then, the CEO walked by, noticed me staring, and followed my gaze. "Oh," she said, "I see you've discovered Jeremy's little test." Jeremy looked up, startled, then composed himself. "Ah, yes." Just finishing up today's security assessment. The CEO invited me into the office and closed the door. It turned out that Jeremy had been taking people's lunches for months as what he called a security protocol test to see how employees would respond to breaches. He claimed it was his way of teaching us all to be more vigilant about company assets and information. The CEO seemed uncomfortable but defended him, saying, "Jeremy has unconventional methods, but he's just looking out for the company's best interests." I found my voice and asked, "So eating Jess's grandmother's last lasagna was a security test?" Jeremy had the decency to look embarrassed. "Well, I didn't know the significance of that particular item." The next day, a company-wide email went out announcing a new enhanced security initiative and, coincidentally, a fully stocked kitchen with free lunches for all employees. Jeremy personally apologized to Jess and paid for cooking lessons with a renowned Italian chef. The lunch thefts stopped immediately, but every time the CFO comes to our floor now, someone inevitably asks him if he's conducting a security assessment today. He doesn't find it as funny as we do. The craziest part? During the company holiday party, after a few too many drinks, Jeremy confessed to me that he had simply been too busy to go out for lunch and had just borrowed one the first time on a whim. When no one caught him, it became a challenge to see how long he could get away with it. The security protocol excuse was made up on the spot when he got caught. I still have the Bluetooth tracker. Sometimes I slip it into random objects around the office just to keep Jeremy on his toes.